Welcome back, everyone, to our quick overview study guide of the book of John. We're in chapter 8. We start off with the adulterous woman, something not found in the earliest manuscripts. You can hear goes back to chapter 7, verse 53, all the way to 8, verse 11 here. Not much is being said there. It's just if it wasn't indeed not in the earliest manuscripts, it's supposed to be some sort of lesson. I would say could be in line with what Christ said, but obviously he may or may have not said it, so you can take it with a grain of salt. But we're starting to move into the more complicated Christological, as a term that they use, oozing with Christology, oozing with the sayings of Christ. The things that he says can confuse a lot of people, and I understand the way that, especially the way it's being disseminated by people. But what he's really saying, and we're going to go over, is the situation that he is discussing with the Pharisees again. But there's also other people around, Jews. And he starts off with, after the adulterous woman that may or may not have been there, he starts interacting with them about, again, his credibility. Jesus is seen as an outsider. If you look here, Jesus in John multiple times says, "Your law." Now, what is he saying when he means your law? Well, it's not Jesus' law. And it's not because he's not a part of the old covenant, because really he's not. He was raised in this system of religion, which is no different than the religion people have created in modern times based on what Jesus said. But when he refers to your law, it seems that more than likely he's referring to things that they have created based off of Mosaic law or the original Ten Commandments, which are different, but also the same, because the Ten Commandments are in the first 5 books, as we refer them to, of the Old Testament. There is a word that escapes me. It's the Pentateuch. I can't remember what it is. But these commandments are in that Mosaic law. They're supposed to be from God and written down by Moses. But then he's saying your law, and he says this 3 times in the book of John, I believe. And what he's getting at here is you have changed them. And he says this throughout the New Testament Gospels, is you have taken something and turned it into something that it's not, and obscuring the original meaning and intent of it. So it's your law. It's not Jesus' law, for both reasons. Even if they follow it to the letter, we don't really know if Jesus said our law. Does Jesus live by the law? Absolutely. He's showing and he's demonstrating that he does. Now, to them, he doesn't wash his hands, he's not doing this, he's healing on the Sabbath. He's not following the law. But again, it's your law. He's not following their law. And he even says it later on, I am from above and you are from below. Now, that below meaning hell or Sheol or the devil or whatever inference he's making there. But he says from above. But he's on earth when he's saying it. More than likely, what I think he's saying is he's there on earth, I'm from above, you're from below, which means under the ground. And he also makes that statement, you are your father, the devil. So as we move into it, Jesus is saying, and he says this through the next 3 chapters, it's kind of the same in a different way, but the same message. He's like, look, I'm doing good things. I'm healing people. Your law says I can't do it, but I can. You're wrong. And a lot of what this is, and the reason why the Jews get so enraged with him, is because not only is he starting in with saying, look, where you're standing and where you think you are is actually really bad. You people are a bunch of Satanists. Where I'm standing is actually where you want to be standing, where you claim you're standing, but you're not. And everyone else, look at where I'm standing. This is where you want to be, not over there. And they hate that. And if Jesus came back right now, it would be the exact same story. You could just do it with the Christians. Any denomination, all denominations, it doesn't matter. Because they're wrong and they've gotten the wrong idea. 99% of people who are Christians really don't know what Jesus is saying. And most of the rest do know what he's saying, but they obscure it. They pretend like it doesn't exist, even though they know it does. But they won't tell you that. Because who's going to destroy their own career? Especially for Jesus. They can just tell themselves and tell you that it is real. But people don't know what Jesus is saying. And just like here, Jesus is doing miracles. He's curing people. Then he's saying, look, I'm doing good things. So how could I be bad if I'm doing good? And they start to get in this argument over here by the treasury. And he's talking about, I'm going away. Where I go, you cannot go. You are from below. I am from above. I am not of this world. Think about that. He's not of this world. He's from somewhere else. You're going to get into the I am statement here, but I want you to notice that I am, and throughout the book of John, ego eimi, I am, is used numerous times. It's like a thumbprint, or a fingerprint, of the style John is saying. Even John the Baptist, I am the one. I am. He's using this over and over and over again. But this is in Greek, converted into English. In Hebrew, they have the I am statement, but it's much different. And then again, I'm not here to ever try to prove one way or the other, because even I don't really know. And the Bible sure doesn't suffice to saying that God actually became Jesus, and this is Jesus. Because Jesus never says, hey, I'm really God in the flesh. I became man. But I'm not going to tell you that because it's a secret. That's not what's happening here. More than likely, not at all. Because Jesus does say quite opposite. But when we hear these I am statements, people get excited and say, oh, that's a clue. That's some sort of clue. They're reading into something that's not really there. But if Jesus really is God as a fleshly being, then he is. Nothing's really going to change due to the fact. A lot of people will say a man wouldn't have this type of authority. But Jesus said numerous times, I do have the authority. And then they make the argument that he can't cure people, but Jesus says he can judge people. And they know that he can do that, and they acknowledge he can do that. But then they still make the claim that he's God, even though he's been given this permission. So God becoming Jesus and giving himself permission, the human being, person, to do all this, doesn't really make a lot of sense according to what Jesus is saying. What is Jesus saying? I have the authority to do these things. I got it from God. I'm his son. Even the Jews make claims that they are little gods because they are the son of God. And as long as you're part of Israel, that's true. But the standards for that at the time of Jesus, and especially after the time of Jesus, is going to change. But the people that were already part of the branch of Israel, or a branch in the tree of Israel, would still continue to be. And that's what Jesus is saying here as well, in a roundabout way. And I'm paraphrasing, but when Jesus says, when you lift up the Son of Man, then you will know that I am he, and I do nothing on my own initiative, but I speak these things as the Father taught me. and he who sent me is with me. And this is in English. He has not left me alone, for I always do the things that are pleasing to him. And guess what happened? As he spoke these things, many came to believe him, because they're starting to realize what's going on here. They're seeing the miracles. They're saying, it's quite undeniable. It's quite undeniable. But the position that the Pharisees are in, this organization, not individual, but the organization, has an issue with this because they can't operate under the guidelines of what Jesus is saying. It's a problem. Jesus is a problem. And Jesus is telling them, look, you guys are wrong. You think you're holy, but you're not. You're on quicksand. And people are looking at the Pharisees and looking at Jesus and starting to make decisions. They're starting to realize what's happening here. So Jesus said to the Jews, if you continue in my word, then you are truly my disciples. Jesus never used the word Christian or Nazarene or anything else. We use them, but Christian is just a word that's someone coined. It's actually more of a Roman style of doing things, as, oh, those people follow Jesus and those people follow that, and so on and so forth. That's all that word means, that Christian word means. A lot of people claim to be Christians. Hitler, presidents like Joe Biden and this, even Donald Trump. This is 2024, 2025 when I'm making this. There was that lady, Kamala Harris. These people are all Christians. Oh, I'm a Christian. Well, what does that mean? Especially when these types of people say it. It doesn't mean a lot. A Christian is someone who was labeled by somebody else. It doesn't actually have any meaning. But disciples, disciple, mathon, which is where we get the word math from, but it actually is more directly related to student. So to be a disciple means you are a student of the words of Christ, continuing in my word. So don't just be a Christ follower. And no, you cannot be a Christian and a disciple. They're not the same. You could be a member of a society or an organization, such as your church, that is Christian. But what do you need to be a member for? You could just go to the church and be with everyone and fulfill that part of your community. But to say that you are a Christian, you're lending yourself and your allegiance to something that really isn't real. It doesn't exist. If someone called someone a derogatory and said, oh, I'm that derogatory, but it doesn't mean anything. Disciples is what you are. Either you are or you're not. And as long as you're alive on this planet, you will always be a student of Christ, because you're always going to be learning. Always. So if you are truly a disciple of mine, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Free. That means rest. Rest from this world. And then they came and said, well, we've never been enslaved. Which is kind of a very odd statement. But Jesus says, whoever commits sin is a slave of sin. And we're slaves of sin all the time. We don't even know it. The pornography, the smoking, the drinking, all this stuff. The devil's laughing at you when you do this stuff, because you're a slave to it. You're a slave to having to do these things that control you. Something not you is controlling you. And that's what a slave is. So if the Son of Man makes you free, you will be free indeed. And this is where we start to get into Abraham and the I am statement. And they even call Jesus a Samaritan, just another derogatory towards him. But here Jesus is saying, I'm doing good. If you knew who I was, that would make you a son of God. But you don't know who I am. You don't like the deeds that I'm doing. So you're of your father, the devil. It must be quite a shock to hear somebody who's actually from God and doing these things saying, you're the evil one. Because you're supposed to be the holy ones, but you're the evil one. And it's true because he does it, and he has authority to do it. He who is of God hears the words of God, but they aren't listening. They call him a Samaritan, and he says it again, if anyone keeps my words, he will never see death. And then we start to get into this I am statement. And again, John uses this I am many times. We do know that the word, the Logos in John, existed before basically the creation of the earth. So it was before Abraham. So that is true. Whether he's saying I'm the God, or I was with God, or I'm a part of God, or if someone, your mother, you're a part of your mother and father because you came from them, but you're not them. So it could be that. Or Jesus may be saying, I'm actually God, and you got to be able to pick up on this stuff. And I myself, making this video, don't pick up on it. All those could be possibilities, but the possibilities of God having to come down here for all these things to be done isn't required. And the opposite, according to what Jesus is saying, he only can do it because of God. So all these possibilities or probabilities of it actually happening rely on what the truth is. And we don't really know. But we do know what Jesus said. And Jesus never said, I'm God in the flesh. But it's a secret, don't tell anyone. Because why wouldn't he say it? Especially at this point. When this is written, some people say, years and years after Jesus is dead. And he already got killed. Now, would it be bad to say Jesus was God even in that time? Could have, because then people would start worshiping, and then the Romans would have a problem with you. So there's all kinds of statements and excuses. But this I am isn't one of them. It just doesn't work. And this is in English. It came from Greek, the ego eimi, and then they're comparing to something that was in Hebrew before, and then we have Aramaic, which is probably what Jesus is saying when he said the statement, but not necessarily the same language that God was speaking in to Moses, the burning bush part of the Old Testament. So it's pretty messy, but a lot of people like to infer these little things right here, say something, but really it's not saying anything, attesting to the fact that he's God in the flesh. He's just saying, before Abraham was born, I am. Yeah, me. It's a statement, a very general statement that John uses a lot. Now, of course, this pisses them off because he's saying he's some sort of cosmic figure that somehow existed before, that John explains, before the beginning of this planet. But before Abraham was born, he was existing. That is saying something to the effect of, I have special powers, I'm like God, or I am God, or I'm right next to God. We know later on in other chapters, Jesus says statements such as these, and they want to kill him too because he is putting himself in that position of being the Son of God. Jesus in chapter 10 even says, you guys call yourself gods all the time. I'm actually doing good works. And you say that I'm not. But your rules allow me to say it. But you want to stone me for it? And that's what they're getting at here. They hate Jesus. Mostly because they're undermining and not doing what they want him to do, according to their law. Not Jesus' law and not God's law, but what they want them to do. They've created a religious institution and they want people to just comply. Happened mostly with what people refer to, or the Catholics claim, was theirs. They oppress people as well. They wrote their Bibles in languages people couldn't understand or have access to. And they just said, just do this and you'll be fine. Just do whatever we say. And you need to understand that it really doesn't matter what you know. 99% of the Christians are wrong. That's fine. But as long as you have faith and you say, I'm willing to understand and to do whatever it really says, and what I know, I'll override in a heartbeat to do just that. That's what it takes. Because no one's ever going to be right. I'm not going to be right, which is why I'm so cautious, because I don't really know. But I'll never know, even if I am right. Never really know what this says, 100% everything. And we're going to be getting into that in these chapters that are a little more complex. But all in all, what's happening here is Jesus had an argument with the Pharisees. He's doing good things. They don't believe him. Jesus says, I'm doing these miracles in the name of God. You're not. I'm good. You're bad. He's calling them out. Very scary for someone like that. Someone telling you that you're the one who's evil. It must have been quite a shock. Especially when you got someone healing the blind and things like this and saying he's from God. Must have been very scary. And then he's reaffirming it, saying, I existed before Abraham. Making claims like that. And they want to kill him. So that's what's happening here. And we're going to be continuing on in chapter 9 into chapter 10, because here he starts talking about light. And this is definitely something that that lives on today in our world. The same teachings.